And welcome into the Nesson Digital Studios. Courtney Cox alongside Doug Kyde. We're about to have ourselves quite the Saturday night here.
Ooh, oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we've got Patriots taking on the Texans out in Texas. So for us, we are unfortunately in the studio. But unfortunately, fortunately, look at this place.
It is beautiful studio.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
So we've got a big night tonight. Obviously, the Patriots dropping their first preseason game against the Jaguars, but tonight's a new night.
It is.
A new team, if you will.
Basically.
We'll see some guys that we probably didn't see in the first preseason game. So let's start with Doug Kyde. Who do you think will be the starters for the Pats tonight?
I think the starters will be the starters, basically, which is much better than it was last week when we were watching a bunch of backups for most of the game. But yeah, I think Tom Brady will be out there. We'll get our first glimpse of Brandon Cooks. We'll get our first glimpse of Rex Burkhead probably in this game. So Stephon Gilmore, David Harris. I think all of those guys will play. Probably only play for about a series or two just because you don't want to overwork those guys. You don't want to risk any injuries. I mean, last night in the Seahawks game, their starting left tackle tore his ACL. So injuries can definitely occur in these games. You don't want to see any of those. So I think this is a good time to just get everyone on the same page in a game-like setting, get them out of there, and then get Jimmy Garoppolo and the backups back in there.
So you say that we're only going to see these guys for a series or two. If you were to think about Brady, obviously that's who everybody wants to see out there. That's what all Pats fans watching tonight are going to want to see. How many series do you think he will be the starter in?
Honestly, probably only a series or two. That's really what I'm thinking at this point. They really don't like overworking him in preseason games. I mean, last year, obviously, it was a different scenario, but I don't think he played until the third game, and even then, it was mostly Jimmy show. So, yeah, I mean, Tom Brady knows what he's doing at this point. I think that they really use the training camp practices, the joint practices to get everyone on the same page, to learn the offense. But you still need some of those game reps, and I think that we definitely will see Tom Brady out there for game reps tonight. But I just don't think they need that many. I also just don't think that you need to risk injury in this game. It's really the next game when we get to see these guys for the full half, and that's really when they're getting those game reps and getting on the same page. So this is just kind of a preview for that, really more than anything else.
Well, we were talking about it earlier. Preseason's just so long.
Yes.
And it is actually kind of crazy because, Patriots fans come out in full force for the first preseason game, and then they don't really see the guys that they want to see out there, so kind of a bummer for them.
It's a serious bummer because in the fourth game, those guys aren't going to play either. Paying full price for these tickets, and they get to see Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett, and KJ May.
It's okay, though.
Yeah, it's still fun.
Jacoby, you want to see Jimmy.
Yeah.
So those are the guys that we will see, but what about the guys that we won't see take the field?
Yeah, there's going to be quite a few of those. Number one, Rob Gronkowski. He basically never plays preseason games. He hasn't played a preseason game for years now. So he's a guy who they just put him out there on the game field. You don't want to risk any injuries whatsoever. He got injured in a training camp practice last year. So putting him on the field for the preseason, that's a no-go at this point. The other list of guys, it's kind of long. Derek Rivers tore his ACL reportedly, so won't see him. Probably won't see Mike Gillislee, unfortunately. He's a guy that Patriots fans I know are pretty excited to see at running back, but he hasn't been practicing. To go through the list, Adrian Waddle, Matthew Slater, Brandon King, Keontae Davis, Dante Hightower, Shea McClellan, Andrew Jelks, Nate Solder, Matt Langle, and Dietrich Wise. A lot of names thrown at you right now, but I guess the big ones in there are the ones that we already touched on, Rivers and Gillislee, but I think that everyone would kind of like to see what Shea McClellan could do this offseason as well. He didn't really play that much last season. He's one of those guys who could really step up for Rob Ninkovich. Now that Derek Rivers is hurt, he could really step into that hybrid defensive end / linebacker role. Another guy in there, Dietrich Wise, probably won't see him as well because he had the head injury, didn't even travel to West Virginia for the joint practices, so he won't be on the field as well. So their defensive end ranks will be really shallow in this game. So a lot of reps for those guys, the guys who are healthy.
It's interesting that you bring up Rob Gronkowski because we will talk about social media at the end of this, but I want producer Andre, if you could throw up Rob Gronkowski's Instagram today, because it is kind of surprising that he's not going to play because he posts this picture of himself getting his hair done. Also, this place, I want to go to whatever hair salon he's at because that does not happen at my hair salon.
No.
He says pregame cut, game day go Pats. So it kind of makes you think like, oh.
Well, I mean, I actually don't blame what he's doing here because he'll be on the sideline with his helmet off the whole time. So got to look fresh on the sideline.
That is a good point. And, there's going to be post-game pictures,
exactly.
I'm sure.
Yep.
All right. That makes a little bit more sense.
Why get a haircut if you're just going to wear a helmet the whole time, So He knows what he's doing.
Words to live by, Doug Kine.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk about who needs a big game. Obviously, coming off of the first preseason game loss, you look at a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, and you've talked a lot about him during training camp, during practices so far, that he's been a little wishy-washy. We were talking before this, and it isn't his team, so we were saying that could probably play into it, but he needs a big game tonight, right? To get Patriots fans to really put their faith in him.
Yeah, I think so, because he did have a good preseason game. Despite the loss, he did play well, but I think he has to play well really in all 4 preseason games. Just not only to get Patriots fans to put the training camp issues aside, but also just for other teams. He's auditioning for 31 other teams. He's auditioning for Bill Belichick. He's auditioning for Josh McDaniels. There's a lot of pressure in these games for him because, God forbid, he's probably not going to see a lot of action during the regular season. Exactly. Knock on this fake wood here, or these fake rocks or something. No, they're real.
Really expensive.
So these preseason games are much more important for him than really even most quarterbacks, because this is the only time when he will take the field. It's also important for guys who struggled last week, and Jacoby Brissett, I guess, might be one of those guys. He did sail some passes in the game against the Jaguars, so maybe get the adrenaline down a little bit more in this game, calm down, get those passes actually, going to your receivers, not 20 feet over their heads this time. And some other guys who struggled, Cyrus Jones gave up 2 really big plays against the Jaguars. We'd like to see him play a little bit better on defense this week for him to just make the team. Safety Jordan Richards also had a tough week last week, and linebacker Landon Roberts. All 3 of those guys are really guys who are fighting for roster spots, and they're on the bubble, whereas I guess coming into the training camp, they probably would have been on the 53-man roster. They might be playing themselves off of it at this point. There's some other guys who need to have big games who weren't on the 53-man roster coming into the summer who might be playing their way onto it. That's linebacker Harvey Longy, defensive tackle Adam Butler. Neither one of those guys had huge preseason games last week, but they've been really good in training camp. So I think that those are guys who have to do good as well. One other one to throw out there is tight end James O'Shaughnessy, who did not play last week. He's another guy that we'll be watching this week because that number 3 tight end role is up for grabs. Jacob Hollister went off for over 100 yards last week. He really did a good job of asserting himself in that roster battle, whereas O'Shaughnessy was on the bench. This week, who knows, we might see a 100-yard game out of O'Shaughnessy with Gronk out of this game.
Well, and I think it's so important to put yourself in these guys' shoes. You talk about Hollister, you talk about O'Shaughnessy. These guys, this is their life. This is their livelihood, and it's now the time has come where they're the test. It's the time for the finals, if you will. Yeah, because they can do as much as they want in training camp, but we've been asking Bill Belichick a lot about this offseason because really there's not that many questions to ask right now. But just how do you weigh a preseason game versus a training camp practice? And he said that everything goes into it, the training camp practices, the joint practices, the preseason, even going into the spring. But I mean, when you see guys have big preseason games, they usually make the roster one way or the other. They might not stick around, but I mean, Zach Sudfeld back in 2013, he had some big preseason games that made the roster. Deion Lewis had a monster preseason in 2015, and he's gone on to become a pseudo starter on this team. So these are really important for these guys, and yeah, I mean, I think that people assume that James O'Shaughnessy is the big favorite to make the roster because the Patriots traded for him, but they traded so little for him that it really could be O'Shaughnessy, Hollister, Sam Cotton, and Matt Langle. Those guys are both in the mix as well. So I think that it's pretty much neck and neck right now, and O'Shaughnessy, he can do a lot on special teams. If he can show himself off as a receiver, then I think he could become the favorite then because Hollister is a rookie, undrafted free agent. O'Shaughnessy has some more experience, and that weighs heavily in these decisions. You think about guys like Hollister, they're so young.
Oh, yeah.
Like, can you imagine that pressure?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I feel old when I look at how young their birthday is on the roster.
They look so young, too, the Hollister twins.
I thought in person he looked older than in pictures, yeah.
I guess, yeah. I think the last time I saw him was in a picture, so that's probably why I'm thinking it. I just spit. Sorry about that.
But it is crazy to think about how young these guys are, and obviously that's why I'm not an NFL player.
No, I'm not either.
I think that's the only reason, though. That's why. But you talk about Jacob Hollister having a great game. Let's talk about other stars, and if those stats that made them a star in the first preseason game will be replicated tonight.
Yeah, we'll have to see about that. The real big 2 stars in that game were Hollister and Austin Carr. Obviously, some other guys did flash in that game. I thought Jimmy Garoppolo played really well, but Yeah, I think that in order for Carr especially to make this roster, he just has to keep doing this week after week after week, because the Patriots have their 6 wide receivers pretty much set in stone on this roster. That's Amendola, Cooks, Edelman, Hogan, Malcolm Mitchell, and then Matthew Slater. So for Austin Carr to make this roster, they basically have to create a roster spot for him to make it. So that puts a ton of pressure on him. They do like him. He got a $30,000 signing bonus when he came in from Northwestern. Not bad, and that's pretty high for an undrafted rookie. But he just has to keep doing this. And I thought he was much better in that preseason game than he's been in training camp. Maybe he's a gamer like Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe that's something that just runs in those Illinois colleges or something. But
it's in the water now.
Yeah, it's in the water, I guess. Because I didn't think he looked that quick or that fast or that, tight in his routes in training camp practices, but comes out there in the preseason, makes a leaping crazy grab. So yeah, he has to just keep doing this, though, because if he doesn't, then they'll be like, oh, we'll see if we can get him down to the practice squad. If not, it's just another undrafted free agent that we've invested in, but not invested that heavily in. But yeah, a lot of pressure on him. I think he will probably have a pretty decent game, though, because I don't expect to see those starting wide receivers play for that long in this game. So it's going to be a lot of him, a lot of KJ May, a lot of Tony Washington, these names that no one really cares about.
Yeah, people don't really know yet.
Exactly, yeah.
If I was to ask this question to Bill Belichick, I know exactly the answer I would get. But for you, what do these preseason games tell us about the 2017 season? I think there's so much hype around the Patriots right now. Mm-hmm. They're going to go, 19-0. Right. It's going to be another Super Bowl win for the Pats. And you hear it everywhere. I mean, we live in Massachusetts. So you'll be walking down the street, and that's what people are talking about. But for you, I mean, it's preseason. This isn't the real thing yet.
No, this isn't when we're ready to make sweeping generalizations about the 2017 Patriots. And I'm on Twitter all the time, but like on Twitter this week, I saw at Doug Cott, follow me, tweet at me, do all that stuff. Someone made a comment about how like the Patriots defense isn't going to be that good this year because they lost the Jaguars in the preseason. It's like, well, first of all, that was players who aren't even going to be on this team. But even if that happens this week, even if the Texans come out and throw 3 touchdowns in the first 3 series, everyone just needs to calm down. This is not really when we make those decisions about the 2017 Patriots. This is not what the Patriots are going to look like in 2017 in September. This is not the defenses that they'll be running. This is just bare basics to see what they have in these players. It's not what the defense is going to look like. It's not what the offense is going to look like. They're really not putting it all on the table, especially in this game, because they're going to be playing the Texans in week 3. So you don't want to put anything on tape that you don't want them to see in this game, because I mean these teams know each other so well at this point. They'll have played 4 times in a calendar year, playing in the preseason, joint practices. Now they'll play in week 3. So that's another reason why I don't expect to see a lot of the starters in this game, because you don't want DeAndre Hopkins to learn Stephon Gilmore's tendencies in this game. And I think that, I don't know this for a fact, I'm kind of speculating, a bit of a conspiracy theory. Stephon Gilmore didn't practice in that first joint practice. That might be partially because they don't want the Texans to get a good sense of these new players that they haven't seen a lot of. So, no, I don't think that this is the time that we're going to be writing columns about how the Patriots are going to go 0-16 rather than 16-0 or anything. But, I mean, it will at least give us a chance to see what the starters look like, which is more than we could say for that first preseason game.
I just hope that Brady has a good game, because if he doesn't, that's all people are going to be talking about. And like we said, 1 or 2 series, and then it's going to be like, Brady, he's 40. Right. It's over.
Yeah, if he goes like 0 for 4 with like 2 handoffs in those first 2 series.
We just don't want to talk about that anymore.
No.
Yeah, we don't want to.
No, he didn't just drop off a cliff because he turned 40 years old this offseason. I think that's something that's really funny, is that people compare him to other 40-year-old quarterbacks, and we're getting on a tangent here, I guess, but it's worth talking about. Yeah. Because it's just a birthday. It's just another day.
He looked the same the day before he turned 40 as he did on his 40th.
He was fantastic last season. Yeah. It's not just going to be like, well, he turned 40, so it's over. It's over for Brady. He's going to be done now. But no, I expect him to play well, and even if he doesn't, I will not be making a big deal of it.
Correct.
I'm sure that certain radio hosts probably will be.
You're just at Doug Hyde. You can see what he's talking about. Yes. But we did kind of go on a tangent there, but it was a good segue because Brady did Instagram this picture today, which got Patriots fans everywhere so excited. There it is. And he said, yes, finally, game day, fist pump, smiley with the sunglass emoji, 100. I mean, you're a Patriots fan. You see that come up on your news feed.
You get pumped. Oh yeah, you're tuning in. Keep him away from scissors, though. That would be my advice to the Patriots trainers, because what was that, week 2 or week 3 last week?
It was week 2.
That was so weird.
The weirdest.
He cuts himself with scissors and has to go home.
And it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Let's keep our
our
starter.
Let's keep the sharp objects away from the starter. So yeah, hopefully he does not cut his cleats or whatever he's doing.
But we want to hear from you guys during the game. We will come back on Facebook and YouTube Live at halftime, so you want to make sure to come back and tune in during there. But tweet at us, reach out at Doug Kyde, at Cox Courtney. If you have questions if you want to, comments, concerns, anything really. We will be back at halftime. Game time is at 8 p.m. Houston and New England.
Yes, back in Houston.
Yes, and Deshaun Watson. I'm excited. I'm a huge, I hope I see, big ACC person, big Clemson, big Dabo supporter. So I'm excited to see him.
I think he'll do well.
Yeah, I think he will too.
Yeah.
All right, well, that will do it for us for pregame. But like I said, halftime comeback. Doug Kyde, I'm Courtney Cox. We will see you at halftime and after the game. Enjoy. Football's back.